Japan, well known for their food.
I love sushi.
Okay, whatever. And their pop culture, which...
Anime!
Okay.
And manga!
Can you guys just let me...
Gaming!
You guys done?
Yeah.
So with that in mind, we're going to be covering two of those topics. We're going to be covering anime and manga. So let's draw Eren Jaeger from Shingeki no Kyojin. Hey guys, Sam for Infinitum here, and today we're going to be doing a new type of content for the channel. We're going to be doing a tutorial on Klave Studio. We're going to be drawing Eren Jaeger from Attack on Titan. I'm pretty sure you guys have heard of Attack on Titan. It is a manga series written by Isayama Hajime and was later on adapted into an anime by Wit Studio. I particularly chose to do a character from this series because we have the third season, which is coming up next month, which I'm really excited about, so looking forward to that. So if you guys want to see more of these type of videos throughout our channel, you guys know what to do, right? Let's get cracking. I don't know what that intro was all about, but whatever, okay? In this video, we will be covering the tool presets and setup on Klave Studio Paint, and then after that, we'll head straight on to the actual sketch of Eren Jaeger. If you want to skip straight to that part, I have put down a link in the description that will skip you straight to that time frame. So let's begin. So getting on to Klave Studio Paint, as you can see down on the screen, I have a canvas already set up. The canvas is on A4 format and my resolution is at 150 dpi, which I would recommend that sort of resolution for A4 piece of paper. You don't want it too sharp or too pixelated. Now we will begin with the tools. I will be covering the pen tools. The pencil tools, I might cover that in another video if you guys are a bit more interested in that section, but really it depends how you want your art to turn out in the end. Whether it could be a manga, or it could be for an anime, or it could be for an illustration. And then in this case, the canvas here is for an illustration. Besides the tools that you need to understand, you also need to understand what sort of equipment you're using. I mean, sure, software in this case, we're using Klave Studio Paint, but if you're talking about a physical tool, whether you're using a trackpad or a pen, that is clearly up to you guys. Klave Studio is not really mouse friendly for any of you users that are using a mouse or a trackpad. You can play around the lines, so if you press U or you go to lines down here, which is figure, and you can go to straight lines. Nope. It's kind of almost similar to vectoring, so you could try doing that. You can use like polyline or a curve. Curve will be much easier in that case. But in this case, I'm talking about a graphics tablet. I am using a Wacom Intuos. If you guys are interested in what a graphics tablet can give you guys, check my video up there. I have uploaded a review on my graphics tablet that I bought. So without further ado, let us get into our canvas. First things first is the pen. Now, Klave Studio Paint already gives you a list of pens already assigned. There's the G pen, the mapping pen, turnip pen, calligraphy, for effect line, and textured pen. Now you'll probably notice that there is a marker as well, which I don't really use very often, except for the felt pen, which I use when I am texturing the eye. There is a tutorial out there on YouTube that I kind of followed, and I actually like this idea of how he colors the eyes of anime characters. A lot of my ideas that I've been doing here are stolen from other users, but to quote Aristotle, imitation is learning. So we will go back to the pen, and I will be using the mapping pen because the mapping pen is set up for sketching for me. On paper, you'd be using a pencil, because if you sketch with a pen and you make a mistake, what are you gonna do, right? You'd be reacting like
What the hell do we do now?
But in this case, it's digital art. You can undo and you can even erase a pen or a paint, which is not possible physically, but it is possible digitally. But it depends on the sort of feel you want. With a pencil, I guess it will bring out a much more lighter feel and a more softer feel. Of course, there's dark pencil, which can give out the same effect, but in that case, I will use a pen. I find the pen a bit more easier for me to use. If you watch Learn to Draw Manga, I think that's her channel's username. She created a series on Klave Studio for beginners and how to use it. Although it may be a bit older version, I think. Nope. Because her video is a bit older. Her tips are very useful, so check her out as well. So we're going to bring out the mapping pen, and the first thing you need to take note is the tool property. So you can see the mapping pen is already set like this. My brush size currently is about 500 pixels, which you can adjust either here on brush size, or you can adjust it yourself on this slider. but in this case I will just keep it on 500 so that my strokes are large enough for you guys to see. The next panel that you will also have to notice is opacity. That determines how visible it is to the eye. As you draw on it, it becomes a bit more invisible. In this case it looks a bit grey because it is black, of course. It's more like something useful when you're doing watercolor, but Clip Studio supports watercolor brushes as well, which is another thing altogether. The next thing you want to notice is anti-aliasing. Anti-aliasing is more like fading out the edges to make your line look a bit more smoother. You can see it already gives me 4 options, which is none, weak, middle, and strong. If you use none, you will notice that it looks sharper on the edges, right? And then if you choose this one, it will look a bit smoother. You can see it looks very pixelated on the edges compared to this side here. And the next one will be a bit medium, which you can see it's more smoothen out, so it looks much nicer. And then finally there is this one, which is smoothen out much more. But in this case, I tend to use the middle because it's neither pixelated or too like smoothen out where it kind of blurs out the lines. Now, a stabilization is if you are doing line art. This is a more useful tip for line art, but I will remind you guys about this tip when I do the line art video. The first thing you want to notice with stabilization is that there is a lag. The higher you do it, the more lag it is behind from your actual strokes. See what I mean? It's literally when you are drawing a line, you feel like you don't have a stable hand and it's less straight. Say I bring it down to the lowest, which is 0. You can see that when I draw the line very slowly, it is very, very scribbly. When I bring it back to 100, you will notice how smooth it is compared to the last one. That is a useful tip. It helps stabilizes your strokes. The only thing you need to get used to is that the higher you do it, the more it will lag behind your actual strokes. So just need to remember that. I tend to keep it on a stabilization of 6, which is neither here or there actually, but it kind of stabilizes in a small way, but it's not too laggy that it disorients me. Now there's also the vector magnet, which is currently unavailable at the moment, but I will cover that maybe in another video if you are a bit more interested on that subject. The next thing is you'll notice starting and ending on the brush size. It's another panel on that tab. On your screen, if you have not fully set it up, you will probably not even see that there. It will probably just stop at vector magnet. Now, how to fix that is you have to go to this wrench icon, which is at the bottom right of the tab. You click that and it brings up the subtool details. Of course, they'll bring up the brush size, inking, anti-aliasing, brush shape. That's where you go ahead and make your own presets, really. This is a much useful tool for you guys. If you feel like the pens that they gave you by default is not something you're used to, you can still redo the presets and make it to something that you're more comfortable with. Now you want to go to the starting and ending, which is around at the bottom, and it will take you up to here. Now originally it will look like that. It won't show anything. You have to go down to the tick box just next to them, click that, it will show up in your tab. I usually click starting and ending so that I could easily explore further onto it. Let me just show you an example. Starting will start auto-correcting for you to make it more smoother. You notice if you take it off, it will look like this, but if you take it on, it will actually auto-correct, which is very, very useful when you want a more tip point. So this rather indicates how much pixels it will correct in order to make it more pointy. Ending is the same. It will do that when you finish your strokes, and you can play around that. It will actually do both sides, really. Those are the useful tips that I have here to share. The other tools I think that will be much useful for you guys to figure out is the transform tools. So you can actually select them. Say like you draw an eye. This is only a rough, so it's not meant to be so neat. The one thing you need to get to know with the Wacom tablet, there's a bit of growing pains when getting used to a graphics tablet if you're new to it, but naturally once you're used to it, it's very easy. Now the eye may not be perfect, so you can either press the M key or bring up your mouse up to here. It's called the marquee. You click that, and with a lasso you can actually select that section. You go to edit and transform. There is the scale up and scale down and rotate. Transform, which is just simply, if you're on an Apple computer, it's a command T. And there is the free transform, which is shift command T. Now simply with the scale up and scale down and rotate key, it will show up like this. Simply you can either rotate, so it's easier to actually move bits. If it's not in proportion, you can actually fix it. Then you can scale down as well, which is actually very easier, because say like I draw a face but I want to draw a full body, I actually draw the face big first and I actually shrink it. It's kind of cheating on my end, and it may not be as effective, but that's how I work. So if you think there's a better way to work it out, I'm all ears actually. So you just press enter and command D to deselect, or whatever is alternative to command D. Now the other one is the free transform, so I will select it again and I will go to transform and free transform, or Shift Command T. Naturally, it's the same as moving your selected drawings, or rotating it is the same thing. The only difference with free transform is that you can't scale. You will notice that the mouse icon changes. It now looks a bit more triangulish and not your usual mouse that you usually see. Now, you will notice that only one side is moving, whereas the others are still anchored onto the paper. So the idea is you can actually change the shape. So you can actually make the shape a bit more different. You can make it sharper, you can make it skinnier, you can even, if you want to draw a remote control facing more angled, you can draw it like this, and then you can actually scale it and kind of flatten it to make it look like it's actually pointing towards the camera, which is very, very useful in my point of view. So I will just press enter and deselect and return to the pen, which you can go back to the pen using the P key. And if you want to use the eraser, you can either press the E key or the eraser, which is on the bottom of the pen tools, which you can bring up. And my eraser is very, very tiny, so I will just scale up again, and you can simply just erase. So looking at the context of this pre-recording, I started by drawing a rough outline of the character's head, and then drawing the eyes, but a bit more detailed compared to the head. After that, I will move on to drawing the nose and mouth, eyebrows, eyelids, ears, and finally doing a bit more of a detailed outline of the entire head in total. I kind of drew a bit of the details of the eyes just to give me a reminder when I head on to the more detailed section of drawing manga characters on Clip Studio, which I will cover in another part. Now, with simple generic hair styles, normally people would think that is perhaps the easiest thing to draw, but I find that is harder on my part, which is a bit strange. Maybe it's just me thinking a bit too much into it. After I finish the hair, I usually then just do a bit more detailed, so have like some hair strands poking out and stuff, which make it a bit more realistic in a sense. After that, then I'll just continue on fixing with the rest of the body. Now, just know that this is actually really just a draft. It's not exactly full-on sketch just yet. And then I just use the transform key just to fix the head, because I find it a bit strange. And after that, I just move on to the actual sketch, which it's still roughly drawn, not exactly full, because that'll be the line art section. But this final sketch allows me to work on the hair a bit more, because it's a bit ugly in some areas. After it is all completed, I just draw a few hairlines just to kind of roughly point out where I can start doing the cell shading. Normally, some manga artists actually do each section individually instead of doing the entire sketch onto one section, so it's easier to actually edit only certain parts, like just the eye, when the eye is slightly underneath the hair, so you don't actually cut out the hair by accident. But I actually kind of do everything into one layer. Usually they'll do separate layers, like hair is one layer, head is one layer, nose, eyes, mouth is all one layer, but I kind of do everything all in one layer, which is really up to you guys. I think that it is easier to draw when you do separate layers. That way it's easier to edit on the go without having to mess around with other aspects of your drawing, but I find it faster in a sense, and if I put too many layers it gets kind of messy and I kind of lose track of where I am. So that is all I have for the sketch. I do hope that it came out okay. The final part of the sketch is very, very different from my time-lapse video because I started tweaking it after recording, but you get the idea. It's all about, while you're still on the sketching stage, you have time to actually fix things. So it's all about fixing that before you head to the line art. Line art is meant to be final. So that's the first part of our tutorial on how I draw Eren Jaeger from Shingeki no Kyojin. I do hope that it kind of went well because this is the very first time I've tried doing tutorial videos. Usually I find that it's a bit hard for me to do it, so I'm just giving this a shot. In fact, this video took me so long to actually put together finally, so I really do appreciate it if you would add more likes and more subscribers down there. I will be posting each part of this drawing tutorial once a week because I need to see how many views I would get out of the first part before continuing. It's a bit hard when you start something for the very first time. You're not sure whether it will actually go well, or else then you kind of be wasting your effort if you don't get much attention. But I will definitely continue doing this part 2 line art next week. So stay tuned and don't forget to drop that like rating down below. Share this video with friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel to join us on our journey on YouTube. I'm Sam from Infinitum, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.